Investigators couldn't even find fingerprints to identify the corpse because after 5 days, face down in the swamps of the jungle of Borneo, the body was totally decaying. It had been eaten by animals and it was covered with leeches. Some people think he committed suicide by jumping out of the helicopter. Some people think the guy was tortured and murdered and thrown out of the helicopter. Other people think he faked his death and right now he's living off the millions he made in stock options. But no matter what really happened, it's a pretty damn sexy ending for a geologist.
If you'd like to earn CPE credit for listening to this episode, visit earmarkcpe.com. Download the app, take a short quiz, and get your CPE certificate. Continuing education has never been so easy. And now, on to the episode.
Hello, and welcome to Oh My Fraud, a true crime podcast where the only torture we get to talk about is studying for the CPA exam. I'm Greg Kyte.
And I'm Caleb Newquist.
Caleb, before we get into it too much with today's case, I just want to read a listener review real quick. Lizardu said, "Consider me a fan. Y'all are informative, insightful, and most importantly, hilarious."
Well, bless your heart, Lizardu. We love compliments and we love reviews, and we'd love it if you left a review. Yes, you. On whatever podcast platform you listen. Leave us a review or write a review. Yeah. Make a rating.
Right.
I don't know the terminology. I'm screwing up the terminology, but it's like whatever it is, do it. It helps people find the show. And maybe Greg will enthusiastically read what you wrote.
I would love to.
Yeah.
So, Caleb, hold on.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Before we get too far into this, let's take a quick left turn. Yeah. If you just here's the question of the day. If you had to fake your own death, how would you do it? Like would you kill yourself? Like, how would you do it? You know, kill in quotes. And how would you avoid detection? And how would you set up a new life for yourself?
Okay. So I had to think about this. I had to kind of compartmentalize this because I have a family and I have to assume that I have to think about this as if their lives wouldn't be ruined.
Right.
So,
okay, good. So you didn't already have a plan laid out?
I mean, I'm not going to say that, but in any case, I am my loved ones being left behind. We're not going to get into that bit of it.
So there's
just
no
straight.
There's no go bag with a hand-drawn map in the closet.
Right.
Under the floorboards in the rec room.
Right, behind the painting in the den.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the way I see it, the way I think about this is that I basically have two options, neither of which are pretty or affordable. So, but the first is something that usually involves the ocean. Okay. Like I tell people that I'm going to go to the beach to watch the sunset. And then I stay until the beach is empty, and then I escape under the cover of night.
Right.
And I leave my flip-flops, my towel, snacks, whatever, in such a manner that it appears that I either went into the water and never came out, so accidental drowning.
Yeah.
Or just simply disappeared.
The perfect plan for a man who lives in Denver. What else you got?
Oh, I guess I could have wandered into the mountains in a blizzard.
Yeah. Okay.
The other involves fire, also very pleasant.
Right.
I mean,
right.
So I'm thinking like car bomb or like a fire bomb in my pied-à-terre, where very little trace of my remains remain.
Yeah.
In each case, I'd have to, I have to ditch my cell phone, of course.
Yeah.
I'd have to figure out a fake passport, probably steal an identity, open new credit card accounts with that stolen identity.
Yeah.
And then, I'd either I'd leave the country.
Yeah.
Or like drive to northern Idaho or some other remote place where people are nosy but still know to mind their business.
Gotcha.
So that feels like northern Idaho. Right?
I think that's the spot on for northern Idaho.
Yeah. But in any case, I'd have to push the car off the cliff. Again, more fire. But it would take lots of planning, and I wouldn't be able to tell anyone anything, which I'm not sure I could do because I'm kind of a gossip and painfully introverted. I'd have to make new friends.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, Northern Idaho, London, Stockholm, Reykjavik, like places where I wouldn't stick out. That's where I'd have. I feel like that's where I could.
Right.
That's where I'd have to go.
With your very, I mean, yeah, you look like you should have a Swedish accent. That's like if I didn't know you and just ran into you on the street, I go, this guy's an exchange student from up there.
Yeah. What about you, Greg?
Scandinavia.
How do you disappear and never be heard from again?
I'd wander into the mountains in the middle of a blizzard. You basically gave mine away.
Like the end, like Jack Nicholson at the end of The Shining. Huh?
Well, kind of. He didn't really wander. He just got stuck in the maze.
Yeah, he was kind of losing it.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway.
Well, and you were like, you wanted to go to some place where you'd blend in. If I shaved the beard, got hair plugs and got my vision fixed, so I didn't need glasses, I think,
dude, you'd be fine.
Yeah, I don't think anybody'd know who the hell I was.
No, you'd be great.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyways, Caleb, the reason we're talking about this is because in the fraud case we're looking at today, we end up with at least one, but maybe two dead guys. And one of those two dead guys, maybe, but not for sure, faked his own death. And all of this has to do with this gold mine in Indonesia. Our story today starts out in Canada. It was there that an enterprising gentleman named David Gordon Walsh quit his job as the vice president of a national securities firm. And in May of 1988, he incorporated Bre-X Minerals. And a little over a year later, in July of 1989, Bre-X debuted on the Alberta Stock Exchange, which, if you're not familiar, the Alberta Stock Exchange is among the top 100 most sexy stock exchanges in North America. And it debuted at a whopping 30 cents per share as a junior mining company.
Alberta Stock Exchange, Miss December on the stock exchange calendar.
Right, just barely got in.
But got in nonetheless.
Right.
Bre-X was incorporated as a junior mining company, which sounds weird, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It sounds like a mining company with very low self-esteem.
Exactly.
But we looked into it, and a junior mining company is an exploration company.
Right.
Not so much a company that actually pulls the minerals out of the ground.
Yeah. They go, hey, there's gold over here. Somebody want to dig this? Yeah.
Right. And energy companies, I know mining's not energy per se, but energy companies kind of work a similar way.
Okay.
Like back in the day, did you ever watch that movie There Will Be Blood?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. Good movie. Movie. Kind of intense and weird and disturbing. But like in those old days, the guys they would walk around with the sticks in the fucking wilderness of Oklahoma or Texas or whatever. And they'd be like, it's right here. Yeah. And but they can't do anything. They were just these guys who had a feeling. Right. And then they dig a hole in the ground and he'd be like, it's mine. And Daniel Day-Lewis would lose his mind. But anyway, that's kind of how mining seems to work too, I guess.
Yeah. It seemed like, well, and that was one of the things, because I know that maybe it's just because when we, did our accounting studies in school, there was, I felt like there was quite a bit that we looked at in terms of like, natural gas, petroleum, that sort of stuff. Yeah. In terms of exploration and things of that nature. So yeah, looking at this, it seemed like there was a lot of similarities that it felt like there was between, but because again, whether it's oil, whether it's liquid gold or gold, you're pulling it out of the ground. You got to find it and then pull it out. So
yeah, it costs money to look for it.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it costs money to get it out of the ground.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
When Bre-X went public, it very intentionally marketed itself to investors as highly speculative. They were literally going to use investor money to try to strike gold, which, to be fair, sounds insane. Even in, 1989?
Yeah.
that sounds crazy.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's like, hey, are you talking 1849?
Yeah.
Or are you talking
California Gold Rush?
Yeah, 1989. I think you missed it, guys.
Yeah. It's been a few generations.
Yeah. Exactly.
Anyway, specifically, Bre-X was going to look for gold in the Northwest Territories. Now, I have not been to the Northwest Territories, but it is, from all I can tell, remote and fucking cold. So I don't know why you would want to go there, why you would think gold is there. Maybe these people know something that the rest of us don't, but I don't know why a person would go pretty much to the Arctic to look for gold.
Right.
Do you?
My guess is that nobody wants to go there to look for gold. So they're like going, hey, where's nobody really looked yet? And they go here.
And it turns out Bre-X sucked at finding gold. So much so that just 3 years after their IPO, in June 1992, David Walsh filed for bankruptcy for himself. Bre-X wasn't declaring bankruptcy, but it was barely surviving. It was basically a shell company.
By March 1993, David Walsh was desperate, so he called up an acquaintance, a guy named John Felderhoff, who was an Australian geologist, not to be confused with Kevin Federline, an American disappointment. And David Walsh asked John Felderhoff if he had any leads on any potential mining projects, kind of like, hey, buddy, I just need the way my brain makes a movie out of this is he's like a junkie looking for a fix, where he's like, just got anything, I just need something. And so a month later, David Walsh spent his last $10,000 to go to Borneo with Felderhoff in search of gold. Now, yes.
May I just interject?
Please.
This David Walsh guy. Mm-hmm. I don't know what kind of person spends their last 10K to go to one of the most remote areas of the world.
Yeah.
But something tells me he didn't have much else going on.
Right. Again, it definitely, none of the accounts that I read specifically used the word desperation, but everything in the story, the context is desperation.
Yeah. And and Felderhoff, an Australian geologist, I somehow, because I have young kids and Bluey is basically on a loop in our house. I'm just my Australian accent comes out frequently. So I just, hey mate, let's get to Borneo and there's some fucking gold over there, man. Let's go. And and Walsh, he's just this Canadian and he's got nothing else going on. He's like, I'm going to take my last $10,000.
Ooh, okay. So how about we take our last $10,000 and go to Borneo, eh?
That's right, mate. Get over here.
Ooh, Borneo. Oh, well, okay. I guess we'll go to Borneo.
You're damn right we'll go.
It's a shit Canadian accent track to do.
Might work, though. Anyway, Borneo.
So it feels like in Oh My Fraud, we do have a required geography lesson every episode. So here's that segment of the show. Borneo is located in Southeast Asia. It's the third largest island in the whole damn world. It's just southwest of the Philippines, and it's about halfway between Vietnam and Australia. Interesting thing, 4 different countries lay claim to parts of Borneo. So it's one big island, but it's chopped up into 4 parts, and those 4 parts are controlled by 4 different countries. But the vast majority of Borneo is shared between Malaysia and Indonesia. The other 2 countries have real small chunks. So, Walsh and Felderhoff, they zoned in on this dense rainforest part of Borneo called Busang, and that was in the Indonesian part of the island. And part of the reason why they did that is because the people of Borneo had been panning for gold in the Busang River for a long, long time. So the thought process was those specks of gold in that there river have to come from someplace. And so likely there's more up in the headwaters of the Busang River. So that convinced Walsh. He then sold all of Bre-X's North American holdings. He scraped together $150,000. And with that $150,000, he acquired Busang and he started looking for the mother lode in Busang.
This is so like Quixotic Is it not?
Oh, hell yeah.
It is so like this guy fucking believes.
Yeah.
And
both of them.
I don't know about you feel this way, but like to me, I this story, I'm just like, these guys are fucking idiots. Like they are
Right.
They are going on the biggest like pipe dream, wild goose chase you could possibly imagine.
Right.
But they just might find a fortune in gold.
Right.
And I'm going to be sitting here in fucking Colorado not doing anything. So to their credit, go.
Yeah, you're right. I guess I hadn't thought about that before. Like the thing that sticks out to me is $150,000, even in 1989, was not a lot of
or whatever.
Whatever
it was.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 1992, 1993. This was March 1993. Yeah. So even back in March 1993, $150,000 was not that much money. So it seems like they stretched those dollars, but like you said, it is funny to think that they're basically doing the same thing as selling all of Bre-X's holding and buying $150,000 of lottery tickets. It's not a whole lot different.
Lottery tickets in another country.
Right. Indonesian lottery tickets.
Yeah.
So these guys, Felderhoff, Walsh, they start looking around for gold. But after 8 months, it looked like Busang was just one more Bre-X failure. And probably based on Walsh going all in, it was probably Bre-X's last failure. But their chief geologist for the project, a gentleman named Michael de Guzman, he pleaded for more time. He also believed in this place being where the gold was going to be. But despite de Guzman's enthusiasm for the project, by December of 1993, Felderhoff was getting ready to shut the whole thing down. And that's when de Guzman found the gold. Lots and lots of gold.
On news of de Guzman's discovery, Bre-X's stock price jumped to 70 cents per share, up from 12 cents earlier in the year. Greg, you are a former middle school math teacher.
Yes.
That is an impressive percentage increase, is it not?
That's probably about 600%, close to 600% jump.
Yeah.
But also funny, I think since it's still under $1 per share, it would still be considered a penny stock.
Over the next year, more core samples were examined, and it was estimated that there were 2 million ounces of recoverable gold. And by the end of 1994, Bre-X hit $2 per share. So, Greg.
Yes.
If you bought $1,000 of Bre-X stock at 12 cents per share, and it is now worth $2, you're feeling pretty good about yourself.
Yeah, exactly. At that point, the way that not that I've been super speculative with things that I have invested in, but I would be like, okay, the ride's over, and I would have cashed out at
no kidding, right?
$2 a share. I go, this is good enough. We made what we needed to do. Let's count our blessings, and
it's kind of a meme stock before meme stocks were meme stocks.
Yeah, but again, I think that's part of this. The fascination I have with this entire case is that it's realizing that gold makes people insane.
Crazy?
Fucking insane. And
madness.
And you see that where it is, where it's like, oh my gosh, what do we have here? And and all of a sudden they're thinking, King Solomon, and that the rocks are going to be made of gold in my city, and yeah, it's a weird, almost like a genetic disease that humans have, that gold makes them go crazy.
By July 1995, the estimates were revised up to 6 million to 8 million ounces of gold, and Bre-X's share price went up to $14.
It's amazing.
I mean, later in the year, some mining analysts estimated more than 10 million ounces of gold, and by January 1996, the stock had climbed to $93 per share. So people are laughing laughing to the bank with this.
And again, if I had bought in at 12 cents a share, the whole ride from $2 to $93, I would have been like, I don't know why I'm staying in. I got to cash out.
Yeah.
I would have been paranoid the entire time.
Right. Not enjoying a second of it.
No. just been anxiety ridden the entire time.
In April 1996, Bre-X moves to the Toronto Stock Exchange, which is the big boy stock exchange in Canada.
Yep.
And the share price jumped to $184.
Right. So almost double. That was in April. Yeah. So
April 96.
Yeah. So that was in 4 months of 1996. The price doubled again.
Yeah. That an increase in that short amount of time, like that's insane.
Yes.
Later, that same year, 1996, the estimates were revised again to 47 million ounces, and the stock price peaked at, ready, $286.50 per share.
Right. So even though they hadn't dug up even one nugget of gold, all the shareholders had definitely struck gold.
Not a single flake.
Right.
What you said, though, is so true, though. I can't believe that didn't dawn on me, but it's like gold. There's something about gold that makes, especially men, makes men mad. Like it lose their fucking minds.
Yeah.
It's like it just, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's very much, and again, based on movies that we've watched of people who are like, there's gold in California. And so they just leave everything behind and grab a pickaxe and a donkey and go out to the hills of Victorville to try to...
No. What's funny about that, though, is they go to California without their pickaxe and their shovel, and they buy them in California, and the guy selling pickaxes and shovels is the motherfucker who got rich.
Right.
The guy searching for gold ended up drunk in a river.
Yeah, exactly. So by this time, Bre-X obviously is a big damn deal. And so unsurprisingly, some other entities start showing up that want to get their fingers into the pie. And in October of 1996, so 1996, pretty big year for this whole situation, there's a local Indonesian mining company who said that they actually own 10% of the interest in Busang. And because of that, the Indonesian government decided that they were just going to delay issuing Bre-X's mining permit until all of the ownership rights were actually settled and just totally written in stone and unquestioned. And so
it seems like a deliberate delay tactic, if I may say so.
And I mean, not to, one of the things that was actually part of the research that I found too is Indonesia, as a emerging economy, they did not have the most trustworthy government. There was a fair amount of corruption involved in the government. So I wouldn't, it's again, it wasn't part of the research, but reading between the lines, it's almost like they're going, we need to make sure that if these are our natural resources, we need to make sure that all of that profit isn't just going to some knucklehead in Canada. Yep. So I think that's part of what's going on there too, but that's a bit of speculation on my part as well. So, but listen, to further complicate things, remember, Bre-X was a junior mining company, and so it didn't even have the capacity to actually extract all those millions and millions of ounces of gold. And because of that, there was not one, not two, but three different mining companies who were actually trying to pressure Bre-X into joint venture deals, which is weird because it very much was that they were trying to pressure Bre-X, not that they were trying to schmooze Bre-X, but it's funny. I think that reflects the fact that Bre-X was nothing just basically months before this. So these are like old established mining companies that like this is their world, and so yeah, I think they're just using their clout to come in and kind of try to force Bre-X to pick them. So then in January 1997, just the beginning of the next year, the Indonesian government issued an ultimatum. They said that Bre-X had exactly 1 month to reach a deal with somebody and start extracting the damn gold, and if they couldn't do that, they'd lose everything. Like everything would just revert back to I guess the Indonesian government. So no surprise, exactly, just beating their 1 month deadline in February of 1997, Bre-X announced a surprise deal where Bre-X would get 45% of the profits from the Busang gold mine. The U.S. mining giant Freeport-McMoRan would get 15% of the profits, and all of the local interests, all the Indonesian interests in the place, including the Indonesian government, would get the remaining 40% of the profits. And so, again, unsurprisingly, all of this chaos made the stock price drop down all the way to $23 a share. So, again, people who jumped on it $286.50 were probably pretty pissed. About
people who
all
bought
of
it $286 were not happy.
And sure, in hindsight, this next thing looks a little desperate. But right after this deal was announced and the stock price sunk, John Felderhoff, the Australian geologist, he announced he had his own new estimate, not of 47 million, but of 200 million ounces of gold in the Busang gold mine. And stock manipulation? Hell yeah. Hell has to be.
John. Hey, mate. There's 200 million ounces of gold in there.
Right. Which is funny because think about that. He was the guy who wanted to shut the whole thing down.
Right.
Just, back in December of 1993. So 4 years ago, he was the guy who said, there's nothing here. We're going to shut it all down.
Like we said, Freeport-McMoRan was brought in to actually mine the gold. So in March 1997, they showed up in Busang in the jungle, and they did their own testing to determine where and how to start their mining operation. But their tests showed, quote, insignificant traces of gold, end quote. Which is weird because my backyard also has insignificant traces of gold.
My backyard too.
Oh,
that's so weird. What?
Incredible.
It's crazy.
At the same time, Felderhoff and Walsh and de Guzman were at a mining conference in Toronto where they were being showered with praise from the mining world. But Freeport-McMoRan was pissed and they were demanding an explanation. The phrase insignificant traces of gold after 200 million ounces.
Yeah.
One of the biggest mining companies in the world.
Yeah. Who knows what they're doing and knows how to get this stuff out. Yeah.
Probably has like fucking armies of lawyers on retainer.
Probably. You'd think so. Yeah.
So Walsh and Felderhoff send de Guzman back to Borneo. It was his samples that showed the gold deposits. So if anyone could fix this problem, it was him.
Yeah.
On March 19th, 1997, de Guzman got on a helicopter to fly from the city of Balikpapan to Busang. 20 minutes into the flight, de Guzman, who was headed to face some potentially difficult and embarrassing questions, jumped out of the helicopter to his death in the Indonesian jungle.
I shouldn't be laughing.
I mean, let's be frank here. My comedic timing was right on the money.
Yeah. And as was de Guzman's.
To be fair, yes.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what happened. Maybe he was pushed. Or maybe something else entirely.
At this point, we've got to tell you the crazy backstory of Michael de Guzman. This guy was, by all accounts, he was a fantastic geologist. He was born in the Philippines. His father was a geologist. He followed in his footsteps. Again, like we said, the Philippines not too far from Borneo. That's how he got pulled in and got part of this. Got involved in the Bre-X situation in Busang. But another fun fact: prior to being hired by Bre-X, he was at another company where he was fired for using company funds to buy food and furniture for, it just says for a woman. We're not sure who the woman was. And that becomes more interesting the more of his backstory unfolds.
Wait, you can't just do that?
No.
Oh,
No,
God.
I don't know.
All right.
I don't know what the limitations are on your expense account, but yeah, it's usually not food and furniture for a lady friend.
There's no expense code for that.
There shouldn't be food and furniture for lady friend. Yeah. So the other thing is de Guzman made reportedly he made $4 million just personally from the sale of his Bre-X stock options that
Not
he'd
bad.
acquired over the time. And obviously the thing exploded, so he's doing pretty good. With anyone with stock options would be thrilled that they had been issued stock options. But then after de Guzman's death, it was discovered that de Guzman had, 4 wives in different parts of Southeast Asia with whom he'd had 9 children, and none of those 4 families knew about any of the other 4 families. And to top that off, while he was at that conference in Toronto that we were just talking about, he proposed to a stripper to be the potential 5th secret wife.
Come on.
Yeah,
Come on.
this guy, he was Mormon.
God.
As someone who lives in Utah, this guy's a Mormon. Then after the whole
Bit of a
thing,
cafeteria Mormon from what it sounds like, but whatever.
a little bit, yeah. Then after all this stuff happens, they found a suicide letter in de Guzman's personal belongings, and the letter said that he committed suicide to escape the ravages of hepatitis B, which I don't know about you, I've never heard about the ravages of hepatitis B. Not saying
don't they just give you penicillin?
I'm not sure, but
Okay.
and I'm sure there's people out there who are suffering from the effects of
The ravages?
hepatitis B, but I just don't know of anybody who's been like, I just can't take this hepatitis B anymore. But and then on top of that, de Guzman apparently had just recently contracted the virus, and the medical documents suggested that his case wasn't even really that bad when compared to what it could be with hepatitis B. And Caleb, on top of that, the suicide note also misspelled one of his wife's nicknames, and it had a bunch of grammatical errors, even though de Guzman was fluent in English. So that's pretty odd.
Suspicious?
Very suspicious. But then check this out. One of his 4 wives, she claimed that 6 months after the helicopter incident, her maid received a call from Michael de Guzman, who left a message for his wife, and the message was that $200,000 would be deposited into her bank account. She checked her bank account, and boom, there was $200,000 in the bank account. And on top of that, there have been multiple, unverified, but multiple sightings of de Guzman in Canada since the helicopter incident. Unverified, so it's kind of like, 2 things that people are seeing and can't
like a
prove in
Yeti?
Canada.
It's kind of like seeing a Yeti,
Yeah,
right?
Sasquatch and de Guzman. They're both in Canada, but nobody can really prove it.
Right. Okay.
Then listen, the body that they found
Yeah.
in the jungle, it took them 5 days to find the body, and when they did, the body was too damaged and too decomposed to be reliably identified. They said it was covered in leeches. It had a bunch of maggots in it. It had been nibbled on by forest creatures. And so, yeah, just in bad shape. As a matter of fact, Caleb, there was one and only one account that I saw that said that the body that was recovered had the hands and the feet had been cut off of the body. And the report was even that they seemed to be surgically removed. Now, you might be wondering what source that was. It was Wikipedia. So I don't think, and that was never, like other sources I said that they were looking for fingerprints, but the fingerprints were too badly decomposed. And I kind of go, you can't really, I don't think if a hand was missing, you wouldn't say that the fingerprints were decomposed. I think you just say the hands were missing. So I don't put a whole lot of stock in the one account that I read on Wikipedia of the hands and feet being cut off of this body. There was another thing that I saw somewhere where there was an account that a body was missing from a nearby morgue at the same time. But again, that only popped up once, and so I don't. But I also don't want to discount that because there's just all of these crazy rumors swirling around the demise of Michael de Guzman and what really happened. There was even a forensic expert. I think they called him like the Sherlock Holmes of forensic science in the Philippines. And this guy examined the evidence of the people who, like, I don't think he did a firsthand examination of the body, but he looked at all of the records of the people who did. And his conclusion was that de Guzman had been tortured and murdered, and his body was chucked out of the helicopter. To me, I don't know, Caleb, to you, to me, I don't know who wants to murder him at this point. People might have wanted to murder him after the face-off with Freeport McMoran, but at this point, I don't know who's wanting to off the guy. Do you see what I'm saying?
I don't know. I mean, I guess the wives didn't know it. The wives didn't know about each other, so
they didn't,
right?
They didn't. They all found out about each other after he died. So it's not a scorned woman kind of scenario here.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, but yeah, likely after his death, they were like, "Oh, yeah, I'd cut off his hands and feet and push him out of a helicopter." Yeah. Indonesian police, they ruled that it was a suicide, and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police concurred with the Indonesian police after they reviewed their findings.
An Indonesian newspaper reported that the gold estimates were grossly overstated.
What?
200 million ounces?
Yeah.
An independent
200 million ounces to insignificant traces. Yeah. I'd say that's a gross overstatement.
An independent consultant announced gold estimates were overstated.
Okay.
Freeport McMoran publishes its findings of insignificant traces of gold.
Right. Okay. And I think
this has all happened. This is kind of is this the epilogue we're doing here?
Yeah.
At this moment?
Yeah, basically, this is the downfall. Yeah. But it's funny. So Freeport McMoran had determined that there was insignificant traces of gold, and they were going back to Bre-X going, "Hey, we're not finding what you're finding." And at this point they go, "Hey, this whole thing, this isn't our bad." So they make it public that they're like going, "We also found that there's just no damn gold here."
Right. Finally, in May of 1997, Bre-X released a report saying there was no gold in Busang. The report said, quote, "The magnitude of tampering with core samples is without precedent in the history of the world," end quote. And
there's been a lot of gold samples in the history of the world. Yeah.
It was determined that the initial core samples had been salted with gold, some nuggets panned from the Busang River, and some shavings from gold jewelry. In June 1998, David Walsh died unexpectedly of a brain aneurysm while he was on vacation in the Bahamas. There'd be worse ways to go.
Yeah. Again, they didn't say this, but in my mind, I envision him like on the bow of a yacht, like sunbathing with a Mai Tai, and all of a sudden, oh, my brain, and then he's done.
Yeah.
So,
in May 1999, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police announced there was not enough evidence for criminal charges against anyone. 2 of the key people were dead, after all. So, the Australian was the only one that's left.
Exactly.
Speaking of which, civil charges were brought against John Felderhoff, but they were all dropped in July of 2007. So there's that.
Yep.
In May 2013, a civil class action settlement gave $5.2 million, a drop in the bucket, to the investors who were seeking over $5 billion in damages.
Yeah.
Not much.
Nope.
Michael de Guzman is now somewhere living on the coast in Cuba, pretending to be a fisherman while living off his $4 million of fraudulently inflated stock options.
And he probably has hair plugs and LASIK, that bastard stealing my idea.
Greg, did we learn anything?
Well, there's three things
Okay.
that I learned. So one of them we've already touched on before, and that's just the mental illness that gold brings upon people.
Yes.
Because
It's a fever. It's a fever.
A gold fever, exactly. Because if in hindsight, looking at the Bre-X stock, that it went from 12 cents per share to almost $300 per share.
Yeah.
Everyone in hindsight goes, that's ridiculous. That clearly falls under the too good to be true umbrella, like easily. Too good.
We were having a nice laugh about it.
Yeah. And but despite that, again, the only thing that I can think of that's going to make people stay with a stock that's showing that kind of insane growth is gold fever, where they're going, yeah, this doesn't make sense, but these guys, they found gold in this remote area, and and this could be one of the biggest gold finds in the history of the world. So yeah, it makes sense that this little obscure company, they just got lucky enough to find it, and now, yeah, we need to get in on this because it's going to go to the moon when they start pulling stuff out of the ground. But again, if there was, think about this. I guess this is where I'm going, Caleb. Take gold out of the equation.
Okay.
If there's any company that's showing that kind of growth, I immediately would assume fraud. Like
Right.
without question. There's fraud going on in that company. It's a Ponzi scheme. There's something like that. This doesn't happen. That kind of growth just is not possible. And so again, that's a red flag that was clearly there, but that also I think was very intentionally overlooked because people, and that's the thing. De Guzman was the one who salted the core samples. That's again, that wasn't the findings in a court of law, like we just said, but that's that's the accepted narrative of what happened here, is that it was De Guzman doing that. But the thing is, everybody wanted to believe him. Everybody did. Bre-X, his boss, David Walsh, wanted to believe him. Obviously, John Felderhoff wanted to believe him. The Indonesian government wanted to believe him because they were getting a taste of it too. Investors wanted to believe him because they were getting rich with the appreciation of their stock values. So it's very easy to lie when everybody really, really wants your lies to be true.
Yes.
So that I find that to be a fascinating facet of this case. So that's the first thing I learned. Second thing that I want to talk about is that what happened to Bre-X is not like it's not just this one thing that happened this one time. In very recent history, we've seen stuff that's very similar to this as well. I think this stuff's all has been on your radar, Caleb. But just this year, we're recording this in 2023. JPMorgan Chase discovered that it's $1.3 million of nickel that it purchased, just like sacks of unrefined nickel, was actually just sacks of rocks. That's JPMorgan Chase. It
was only 1.3 million.
It was. Yeah.
That's so weird.
That was
Is it
well,
weird?
It's funny that you say it like that.
Yeah. Well, I just know how big JPMorgan is. JPMorgan Chase is like the biggest bank in the world.
$1.3 million.
Oh my God, it's not even sneeze. It's like it's even more insignificant than that. But the fact that they found it, I wouldn't be surprised if there was actually maybe like 130 million in sacks of rocks just laying around, because JPMorgan's so big. I just have to believe that it's like, oh yeah, there's all kinds of like sacks of rocks and people think it's nickel or whatever.
See, that's bizarre to me though too. Is I think of JPMorgan Chase is this Wall Street bank that's, everything's digital, and maybe they have a vault with some paper money in it. I don't think of JPMorgan Chase as having some underground warehouse with sacks of ore. I don't see them as having sacks of ore. That's going to dirty their suits. So that's also weird to me.
It is weird. It's a weird one.
But Bre-X and JPMorgan also weren't alone. In 2021, there's a company called Mercuria Energy that is a European venture, and they thought that they had $36 million worth of copper, but what they actually had was, again, a bunch of rocks that someone had spray painted a copper color because that goddamn Rust-Oleum has just a very believable color palette. So
Very impressive.
That's awesome. Where somebody's like, we got sacks of gold or sacks of copper. It's like, really, show me. And they're just like, yeah, check it out. This looks like copper, right? And they're like, yep, here's all our money. Here's $36 million. So with both of those cases, the Mercuria and the JPMorgan, I'm shocked that they would spend that much money and not do just basic due diligence that the sacks had what the sacks were actually supposed to have. And with that, I actually kind of give a little bit of a pass to Bre-X, because in the one thing that the Bre-X case has that JPMorgan and Mercuria don't have is Bre-X, everything they were doing was in this very, very remote part of a tropical rainforest. So it was one of the accounts that I read, they got into just how difficult it was to actually get to Busang. So what De Guzman was doing, he was boots on the ground in Busang. He was taking these core samples, and there really wasn't. It was too difficult, too costly. There weren't experts who had any kind of inclination to go, yeah, I'm gonna trek into the Indonesian jungle on Borneo to just fact check Michael De Guzman. So they have that excuse. JPMorgan and Mercuria absolutely do not. They just had sacks laying around that they didn't make sure had the, what do you call it, the minerals that they were supposed to have inside them. Oh yeah, so I guess that's it. And I kind of touched on the last thing I have to say. Really, I kind of lumped that in with the first part, and that's just that people want to believe the lies, and we see that here. This is the connection I want to make there. We've seen that with Ponzi schemes. We've seen it with pyramid schemes, and obviously we see it now with an Indonesian gold rush. And the thing that we lack and is that the accounting profession is supposed to provide, but I think obviously anyone who's doing any kind of audit anywhere, whether that's financial audits or metallurgical audits, they need to have skepticism. They got to go, I don't know if these are really the rocks that they're claiming that they are. How do we
know these are the rocks that you say they are?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So we need professional skepticism. Because we don't even have amateur skeptics out there, let alone professional skeptics with these cases.
Yeah, people are enthralled by the story.
Yeah.
Right? Like the story right now, or the story was crypto. The story has been crypto. People want to believe. People want to believe that story so fucking bad.
Absolutely.
Pretty interesting.
Yep.
But those are the stories. That's just more stories that people want to believe.
Yep.
Yeah. Like you say, we could use some. I'd settle for amateur skeptics at this point.
Exactly. Because it does seem like you don't need a huge amount of expertise to just, I mean, I don't know. Again, in movies, like I think didn't like pirates, they'd take their doubloon and they'd like bite it a little bit to make sure it was gold. Nobody was even doing that with this stuff. And also it's funny, like they said that De Guzman had salted the core samples with, and the part that makes sense was he salted it with just flecks of gold that had been panned from the Busang River. But then he got desperate and he's like, hey, who's got a gold tooth? Let's knock that out. Yeah. Let's shave it up and put it in with this sample. So, again, there's very, very little testing, very little skepticism happening in any of this.
The biting of the gold. That's so true. That's that's
what amateur
decent. That's decent audit evidence right there.
Right. I mean, kinda. It's at least a minimum. It's something.
Supplemental procedures.
There you go. There it is. All right, that's it for this episode. Remember, best practices dictate that if you have 4 wives, make sure that they all live in the great state of Utah.
And also remember that even if your company implodes from a massive fraud, it's possible to squirrel away enough money to travel to the Bahamas to die from an unexpected brain aneurysm.
Like a damn CEO. So, hey, if you want to drop us a line, We'd love to hear from you. Please send us an email at ohmyfraud@earmarkcpe.com. We get lots of emails in. As a matter of fact, Caleb, I think somebody sent this in to us. They were like,
They did, yes.
And whoever you are, send me another email, and I will apologize to you on a future episode for not giving you the proper shout out in this episode. But Caleb, if people just want to talk to you and leave me out of it, where can people find you out there on the internet?
They can chat at me on Twitter, because that's what Twitter is for,
Right.
and LinkedIn, where things are a little bit more civil.
Yes.
At C Newquist on Twitter and / Caleb Newquist on LinkedIn. Greg, if they want to leave me out of it, where do they find you?
I'm starting to just give up on Twitter, period. I barely ever check it nowadays. So I'd say just go find me on LinkedIn, Greg Kyte, CPA. The last name is Kyte, because my ancestors were just as bad a spellers as I am.
Oh My Fraud is written by Greg Kyte and myself. Our producer is Zach Frank. If you like the show, leave us a review.
Please.
Give us a rating.
Yeah.
Share it with a friend.
Do it.
That's how people find the show. Be sure to subscribe on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, whatever platform you listen on. And for the accountants, listen on Earmark. Get some CPE. That's what Greg does.
I do. I love it. I'm already up. I've already got we're a little over 4 months into my CPE period, and I've already got 30 out of my 80 credits knocked out.
Beautiful.
Wonderful.
Join us next time for more avarice, swindlers, and scams from stories that will make you say, "Oh my fraud."
Oh my fraud.